be sharing some important information that is really great for us busy women and moms to get to know. So who is Samantha? Samantha is a spiritual mentor and a business alignment coach, and she helps to empower women to run extraordinary businesses and also lives through using some ancient teachings that she incorporates into the normal and modern life. So thank you for being here, Samantha. I'm also grateful because you are a mom, so we can relate a lot with you. Have a little girl, and I have invited you to talk more about chakras, which not many people, unfortunately, are using them in our real life, and also how can we unlock our feminine energy as mothers. So thank you again for being here.
It's my pleasure.
Yes. So do you want to tell us quickly about a little bit about yourself before we start?
Sure. So as you say, I'm a mum. I have a 3-year-old daughter. I run a business that really takes the two worlds that I have come from. I started as a lawyer and working as an executive in government, and then trained as a yoga teacher and did other various training in healing modalities, and kind of brought those together because I found that one without the other wasn't working in my own life. And I was, initially in that kind of corporate world, I was pushing a lot. I was very ambitious, and I was kind of go, 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 go. And eventually I got chronic fatigue and really got very sick and was forced to really stop and reassess and reevaluate where I was. And at the same time, I was doing training in yoga, and I was doing lots of healing work. And through doing all of that, kind of got guided into finding a way to bring that together so that I could for myself run a business in a way that's really sustainable and still effective and still prosperous and so forth, but also is connected to really what my sort of deeper calling is, if you like. And that integration of those two has flown out into all aspects of my life, including being a parent and the way that I care for my daughter as well.
Sounds very exciting. Yes, very intriguing, because corporate work is like completely apart from those yoga healing meditations and try to calm and slow down.
Yes.
So I think to incorporate that, but I think we are getting there.
I agree. I think it's certainly for myself, it's been a long challenge. It's been difficult to work out how to bring them together. But I think not just for myself, but for society as a whole, we're kind of each of us on our own journey of that type. Yeah.
Connected with ourselves.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I have done a little bit of research, and I have learned about the chakras and trying to see how I can balance them. But I think not a lot of people know about them. So could you quickly explain us a little bit about the chakras and why we should be aware of them?
Sure. So the chakras are they're an ancient teaching from the yogic tradition, and I didn't know anything, never even heard of them before I did yoga teacher training. And when I did the training, it suddenly opened me up. I was still a little bit like, what are they talking about? But it opened me sort of the first step to investigating what are essentially energy channels in the body. So if you know about, or if you've ever been to an acupuncturist, you'll know that there are different types of medicines, and there are sort of Western medicines and Eastern medicines. And in the East, when we kind of in the West went off into an investigation of rationality and reason and what we could see and what we could feel and what we could cut and so forth, the East really stayed with its investigation of energy. And what it uncovered was that there are 7 energy channels in the body, and they run from the base of the spine to the crown of the head. And there are other chakras as well, but these are the main ones that are really important to know about. And that for each of them, it really sets up within us a system of personal mastery. So it sets up for us a personal development program that everybody already has kind of integrated into their own being. And each of the chakras relate to different wisdom and different lessons that we have in our lives to learn on our path toward greater levels of consciousness, greater levels of awakening and awareness. And so very quickly what they do is, so the base, it starts right at the base of the spine where the perineum is, and we're talking there about being connected to the earth, being really in our bodies and really comfortable in our bodies. We're talking about security and safety. We move up to the next chakra and we're talking about creativity and emotional fluidity. We're talking about communication. And then we move up to the third chakra, which is at the solar plexus area. And we're talking about willpower. We're talking about personal power. We're talking about our willingness to be an individual. And we perhaps will talk later about how that connects with, the childhood development stages, because we start to see, once we understand the chakras, what's going on with our children at particular stages in their development and progression. We go to the heart chakra and we're talking about compassion and love and forgiveness. We come here, and this is connected to the second chakra in that we're talking about the creativity again, but the expression of that creative idea and really communicating that with the world and being willing to be seen in the world. Yeah, very important one. And then we have the third eye chakra where we're talking about intuition. And then finally, we come to the crown chakra, and we're really talking about a state of awakened enlightenment, awareness, this understanding of oneself and one's divine purpose in the universe and on the planet at this particular point in time. So you see how we sort of move through different stages of consciousness and awareness, and we do that through our whole lives. We're kind of energetically moving through them, and at any time we could be blocked or we could be excessive in any of our chakras, and they'd be affecting our decisions, they'd be affecting our behaviors and our experience of the world.
Of course, yes. I love how you say that we have our personal development journey already in ourselves, but we tend to look outside for the answers, and we don't trust, and we don't know what's happening in our body.
Yeah.
And also, not only I believe it's the behaviors and all that, but I think all this balance of the chakras also affect greatly our health. So how are those related to health? Is it like particular system or organ related to chakras? You said the heart or the throat?
Yeah, definitely. So let's take the throat, for example. If you've suffered a lot from either sore throats, or you're a teeth grinder, for example, the place to look is at the fifth chakra and the issues around the fifth chakra. And they're all about, have I been able to express clearly in the world what my intuition, what my guidance, what my heart tells me is here to be expressed? And each of us have our own version of that. And if we've been shutting that down in any way, then we're going to have problems here, both energetically but also physically. If you go to the base chakra, for example, because it's right down at the base of the spine, you might have problems with your bladder, or for a male would have problems with their prostate, or any kind of elimination problems will be connected to that base chakra and that issue of security and safety. So each of them has their own physical correlation, because the chakra system really works that I often talk about in the Inside Out approach, which I love that there's now a movie called Inside Out that it kind of explains a lot of that for me. But if we start with the energy level and we heal that, then whatever's going on, kind of, if there's a knot, let's say energetically, it's going to express itself physically. So my approach is always start with the energy, clear the energy, and then the physical will follow. But you can easily notice what's happening in the body and then go inwards. Use that as an invitation to kind of go that way. So go what I would call from the outer layer to the inner selves. Yeah.
Yes, I follow that more out thing, because I ask my clients and I teach how to read and listen to the body messages. So it's more that.
Yes.
What's happening? There's something there. It's because there's something underneath, and the same with the disease or the behaviors, as you said, have a root inside.
Exactly.
Tend to ignore. So,
and I think that doing it that way is it's, as you say, it's an easy way to diagnose, because you're like, well, I know that there's a problem with whatever physical part of the body, and then we can go in deeper. I think as mothers, we all, the second chakra is really all about reproductive organs and the reproductive system generally. And so if we're having any kind of problems around whether it's conceiving or any sort of problems during pregnancy, etc., that's the area to look at. So the approach of, first of all, work out what's going on in the body and then go from there will help you enormously.
that's good. So in terms of our feminine energy and our power as moms and women, is that situated in a particular chakra, or are we talking about having an alignment and balance in all of the energy channels in our body?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely in all of them. So, and there are certain things that we as women have been socialized either to be healthier in or to be stuck in. So let me give you some examples. Generally, women have a greater level of emotional fluidity, emotional intelligence, a comfortability with expressing our emotions. That's all related to the second chakra. And what that means is that when we compare ourselves, let's say, to men, we tend to have, in that regard, healthier chakra issues than men who've been socialized to really shut down their emotions, that many men have. We tend to be quite connected to our hearts and forgiveness and compassion. And this is obviously a generalization, but it's, and a lot of women are already connected to their intuition and are able to allow that to guide them, particularly becomes incredibly important when you're a mother, to be able to access that and allow your intuition to guide you rather than read 25,000 books about parenting, or to ask every single person you know what they think you should do about the sleeping issue or the, feeding. Exactly. But I think then equally we've had areas that we've been very shut down in. So as women, we carry this collective consciousness of being silenced. So we've been told for centuries that we don't have anything worth contributing. We've been killed and burned and all sorts of things for actually standing up and speaking up. And so this chakra tends to be shut down in a lot of women. We tend to be terrified of being seen in the world, speaking up. And so this one often takes a lot of clearing. But I think in terms of connecting to, let's say, the divine feminine and to really the source of our energy as women, we're really talking about the base. We're talking about being embodied. And the base chakra is about being comfortable in nature, being comfortable in Mother Earth. And that's the source of our power, the Shakti power, as it's called in yoga, our creative power for all that is in the world. And so if we can become very comfortable in our bodies, very grounded in ourselves, learn to stop, learn to slow down, learn to really appreciate that we're safe in this space, then we can fall into that divine mother energy. And then all of the other work in all of the other chakras can start to express itself in the unique way that you were born to express it. But if we don't get that base right, we can kind of play up in these upper chakras and do lots of meditations and connect with, all sorts of things from soul, spirit guides, etc., etc. But we're not grounded into our bodies. And of course, motherhood is probably one of the most beautiful ways to help us to ground into our bodies, because you have to be present to the process of pregnancy and then the process of labor, and then your children constantly kind of invite you to be present and to be here and to be in the messiness of life itself. And so starting with the base, and then of course, as I mentioned, that second chakra is the reproductive chakra. So that's the other one that's incredibly important.
Related.
Yeah.
Okay, so that get what you mean about being grounded, being centered. Is it also like loving ourselves and accepting ourselves like we are?
Yeah, so that those issues kind of come up here to the solar plexus, to the heart, where we start to really both forgive ourselves and to forgive others for the harm that has been done to us and that we've done to others. And moving through those chakras becomes incredibly important for living in harmony in the world with other people. So we can live in harmony with nature, but then we can step into society and then have, all of our buttons pushed and people are, frustrating us or annoying us or we're doing that to them, etc., etc. And that's when we start to move up and do the clearing in solar plexus and heart chakra.
As we talk, I'm assessing myself. It's a great awakening time for you to do a lot of internal work because of all the bottoms that are pushed and all the things that we have to attend and follow our cues and trust our intuition and also meet the best way our children live.
Yeah.
That's so valuable information that I think it should be, taught as well as you have the antenatal classes.
I agree.
There should be a lot of information about how to recognize this and working on our inner energy channels to give our best to our kids as well.
I completely agree. I think as a mother, knowing about the chakras has been incredibly useful because one of the things that it has enabled me to do was really focus on what the needs have been of my daughter at any particular point in time. So, for example, children go through and sort of journey through energetically a particular chakra at a particular point in time. So from time in utero to about 12 months of age, we're exploring the base chakra. So we're developing in the base chakra. So this is like a childhood development sort of system that we have inbuilt in us. And so knowing that as a mother, we know really that there's only one very important requirement to attend to, which is that requirement of safety and helping them to really ground into their bodies, to come out of wherever they have been as souls, as spirits, whatever you want to call, and come into the body and really give them that sense of security and safety. And what that meant for me when my daughter was very young was that's all I really focused on. I didn't worry about, was she getting enough intellectual stimulation, blah, 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 whatever it might have been. I just focused on, is she feeling connected to the family, to the tribe that she's been brought into? Am I, touching her enough so that she gets that sense of touch in her body and she starts to get a sense of what her body is? I wasn't doing a lot when she was very young of, moving around a lot. I was trying to keep her very kind of connected to her community and to the house that she was born into. And then we moved from there, kind of that up to 2 years of age, we then move into the phase of the second chakra. And so the needs really there are about creativity. It's about starting to connect. It's about understanding emotion. And so that's what I focused on, was just helping her with her emotional world and helping her with allowing her emotion to kind of express itself. Because as children, emotion is completely overwhelming. It takes over our whole bodies and we're like, oh my God. Exactly. So attending to that. And then that 2 to 4 is really that toddler phase that you spoke about. And we're up here in the solar plexus chakra and we're testing our personal power and we're trying to find, we're suddenly coming to the point of recognizing, oh, I'm separate to my mum and dad or whoever I'm living with, who I've been living with since I was born. I'm a separate individual. And that means that I can say no. And so we're starting to test that and see what happens when we say no and what happens when we say yes and what happens when we ask for things. And so as a parent, you can sort of rest in that, knowing, well, actually my children or my child are learning how to set boundaries for themselves. And this is also incredibly important for women. And a lot of work I do ends up coming back to this period of time in people's lives where they didn't learn how to set, they weren't allowed to kind of say no at any point. And this is the start of the people-pleasing behavior that so many women fall into, of I can't say no, there's something wrong with me being able to say no. And it comes back to this developmental phase of being parented differently, let's just say, in the past, where children were just told, I don't really, just be quiet. It doesn't really matter what you want. This is, yes, exactly. And so we move up from there. 4 to 7 becomes the heart chakra, and then we continue from there. And so understanding each of those phases, it takes away a lot of the confusion as a parent about what's going on for my child, and allows us to really focus on, these are the core needs of my child at this particular point in time. And so if I can focus on those and really set up a healthy system for him or her or them, then I know that the grounding, their emotional and energetic grounding is taken care of.
Exactly, and that's just the normal process. It's not that your child has a problem, but that's the normal development. They will express at certain points.
Exactly.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
So it not only helps as moms to do internal work for us, but also to guide us how to respond better to our child.
I think,
as they age.
yes, definitely. I think the more work that the mum does, the better that she is more resilient she is, the more she's able to cope with the ups and downs of life, but also the more she understands about, the more she's able to respond appropriately to the needs of her child in that moment.
Yeah, so I believe there's a lot of resources out there and information, but if you were to give busy moms of young children some key points of advice how to start working on their own self and being aware of their energy channels and how they can, as you said, start with the base, because there's no point of doing a lot of work up here on the ground. If there's no grounding, you are not connected to that higher source of energy that is going to flow up and down. So what would be some key things that you would advise busy moms to start doing?
So definitely to find ways to stop. This is it. There is no, I'm sure you've maybe had many guests who've said this, but it is probably the number one thing, because you can't, the reason that the West went one way and the East went the other, as I say, with when we were exploring how to understand the body and human beings and so forth, was that the West went up into its mind and started thinking about, trying to work it out at the intellectual level. And the East said, well, actually, we need to be still and be quiet and to go deeper and go within. So you can't possibly understand the chakras if you don't spend time with yourself and you don't learn how to turn within rather than turn without for advice and guidance and so forth. And that requires a willingness to not think of the 1,001 reasons why you can't stop. They're all there and we all have them. But instead to decide, actually, I'm important enough and this inner world is important enough to dedicate some of my time to as well. And I can't tell you, the more that we focus within and do that, the better the outer world becomes. It becomes easier. There are less dramas in our lives. We become stronger in ourselves and our capacity to deal with anything that comes along becomes much greater. So firstly, dedicating the time, being willing to stop, knowing that there's this system that we've got, and then following intuition to, well, what feels right in terms of now learning more about that or finding a way to do some clearing in that. So I spend a lot of time in my programs teaching people really simple, clear ways to clear out these chakras quick ways, because I'm always looking for the quickest and the deepest techniques for doing that. And everybody's going to be different. So some techniques are going to work really well for some people and others are going to work better for others. And I never really say to people it has to be this one particular tool or technique. I say investigate for yourself and find out which ones work best for you. And for me, really, then it came down to just doing the healing work that came from all of these big and small hurts and injuries and so forth that I had picked up along the way, which we've all picked up along the way in our lives, that was stopping me from being really healthy in each of the chakras. And once I had done some of that healing work, I started to see the transformation, and I started to see the ways that those chakras were revealing themselves as being more healthy in life. So, for example, my intimate relationships became healthier, or my ability to attract money became much easier, or my willingness to, as a business owner, be seen or be interviewed, just the willingness was there, as opposed to kind of forcing myself and telling myself I have to do it, I have to do it.
Natural.
Much more naturally. Yes.
Yes, it sounds really good because it works well for you that are helping other businesses, but it works well for everyone who is willing to do the work.
Yeah.
Put it in practice in their business, whatever they do.
Yes, exactly. So definitely starting there, noticing what's going on in the mind, for example. I always tell people if you're not sure where to start with kind of clearing stuff out, clear out the mental debris that you're going on. The kind of we've got so many thoughts going on every day, and so many of them are destructive and are not. Beautiful little guest with us today, are not. Exactly. So I often suggest to people just to do morning pages. So just sit down and write a couple of pages every morning of all of the thoughts that are in our head, blah, 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 and get them out of our head and onto a piece of paper so that we can start the day fresh. Yeah. Hello.
Oh, that's so excellent. Yes. So can you tell us more about the program that you run for Freedom?
Yes. Yeah. So mainly I work with women who are either running their own businesses or they're looking to start their own businesses. And I have two different programs. I do one-to-one work with women who want to kind of really focus on, get some very specific support. But the programs that I run, one is the Freedom Collective, and that's really an opportunity to dive much more deeply into the chakras. So there are chakra pods within the Freedom Collective. It's a membership portal where you come in and we give you guidance about, is this showing up in your life now? Is this showing up in your life now? So it might be, for example, from a business perspective, it might be, are you having trouble with list building? Or are you having trouble with branding? Or are you having trouble with communicating with your tribe? Okay, all of those are going to be second chakra issues. And so then we send you off to the second chakra and say to the pod and give you a whole lot of resources, from meditations to self-inquiry techniques to healing and clearing exercises, which then help you to do the work in the chakra so that then you can implement the strategies and so forth much more healthily and cleanly. So that's what the Freedom Collective does. It's an ongoing kind of membership space, and people are really directed by their own lives as to which of the chakras they investigate, because we're all kind of traveling through them all the time. And then they do some clearing work there, and then they might find, it's time now to work on the crown chakra or the throat chakra or whatever. So that's the Freedom Collective. And then I have an immersion program, and that's really for people who are and I do definitely have mums in that group as well, who are looking to do a deep dive kind of 6-month spiritual mastermind, business mastermind, where we take a month at a time and we look at a chakra, We do clearing work on the chakra. We work out how it's kind of living in our life, because it can be very esoteric to talk about this stuff. And I'm not a big fan of just learning this as kind of theory. I'm a big fan of understanding how it's playing out in your life. And so we do 6 months of working through clearing the chakras and then implementing what that chakra would guide you toward in your business. So whether that's communication issues, or whether that's developing programs, or whether that's launching, or whatever it might be, that's a sort of 6-month Women in Freedom immersion program. So they're the things that I offer. So everything's really online at Samantha Nolan-Smith. So Samantha and then Nolan is Nolan Smith.com. And that's my virtual mothership. And hello. Yeah, that's where you'll find me. And then everything branches off from there. So, and I'm on Facebook at Samantha Nolan-Smith, and I'm on Twitter at Sam Nolan-Smith. And so these are the places that people can find me if they're interested. Great.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time.
It's my pleasure.
I know it will help everyone to follow your advice and just to get to learn more about your
Yes, it's been a pleasure, and I really love talking about the chakras. So thank you for the opportunity.
I cannot see you as a lawyer.
Ah.
I'm not pretty sure that myself, but I can see you're very passionate. Obviously, you are helping to transform businesses and women that with this information.
Thank you, Paula.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
For your time.
My pleasure.